Hey guys, Julian here from SynthwavePro.com. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It is much appreciated. So today we take a closer look at synthwave drum fills, specifically tom hits, and we find a quick and dirty way of processing them. Let's get started. All right, so we're gonna play the song out in context. I want us to focus on these tom fills right over here at bar 25, and we'll process them, right? So right now they sound kind of dry, and then we'll get to warming them up a little. All right, so those tom fills sound like they need a bit of love. They sound pretty dry, pretty uninspiring. All right, so one of the things I'm hearing is that we're getting quite a bit of top end in there. So one of the first things I want to do here is bring in an EQ, simple EQ8. And I'm going to get rid of some of that high end, that top end, as well as some of those lower frequencies. So first things first, I usually don't use slopes like this, but hey, I'm feeling kind of frisky today. So I'm going to high pass. And one of the things you want to do when you're high passing like this is to completely exaggerate it. All right, this is over the top, and then slowly bring it down as the sound is playing. You want those fundamentals to be in the sound, right? Now we could go ahead and use the analyzer here, but I always like to use my ears. There we go. You can really hear this this hit right over here on beat number 2. Ta-da-ta-ta-doo. All right. Cool. And as for the top, again, I am going to use one of these hard slopes. I normally don't, but hey, why not? All right, that sounds warmer already. This is what it sounded like before. And then after. Pretty neat. Next thing I want to do is add a bit of compression. I think we can give this a little bit of warmth and make them sound a little even, right? Because they sound kind of pokey right now. Now that has a lot to do with the various velocities here, but I also want the compressed sound to kick in. Not too much, not over the top, but we're definitely going to be applying some compression here. So I'm using the glue compressor here. And I don't want to over compress this, meaning that I want to stay away from these ratios 2:1, 4:1, and I'm probably going to go for something like 10:1, right? So let's go ahead and apply some threshold, some compression here. All right, that to me sounds a little too compressed. And this is at 4:1. Let's try 2:1. It's even worse. Now I could go ahead and back off the compressor here in terms of the threshold, but I'm going to keep it where it is. And instead I am going to opt for a 10:1. Just has a more natural sound. And this is the sound I want. Nothing's wrong with 2:1. I just want to opt for 10:1 for this particular series of drum hits. Let's mess with the attack and the release right now. All right, I think we're choking it once the attack is a little too fast, so I'm going to back off. That's a little much. All right, let's try the release. Quick release. Sound kind of jumpy. Let's try 0.4. All right, so we're definitely adding some sustain here. We haven't even added any makeup gain yet, but right now, right off the top, just taking about, 6-7 dBs of gain reduction. It sounds a lot more sandwiched and glued together, right? So let's go ahead and make this up. Let's add some makeup gain here. Now, some of you may notice that I am, in fact, clipping as I output of this EQ8 and this compressor. So one thing we can do here is simply lower the gain of our EQ. Now, I'm not too concerned with clipping when it comes from plugin to plugin, especially in Ableton. There have been so many discussions about this, but I'm not really particularly concerned with this. But for those of us who are really concerned with clipping, well, you know, we'll just lower this by a few dBs. Now let's adjust our threshold here and make up our gain, right? Make sure we're not clipping here. So before, all right, sounds way more consistent. Without it on, you kind of hear this, and with it on, it's more like ta 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 ta. Now, I really like the sound of this particular hit, all right? This is the hit that occurs on beat number 2. Let me go ahead and highlight this for you. I'll color code it green, this particular hit, and I'll silence these guys. Yeah. Off. No life. Right? And with. Cool, but let's push this further, all right? I want to bring out some of these harmonics, especially the fundamental, that do sound. I really like it. I think it's a classic 80s sound. So I like to bring in the saturator here. I'm using the stock plugin here, and I am just going to dial in some simple settings. I'm going to use the soft sine algorithm here, add a little bit of drive. Let me focus on this particular hit first, and then we'll bring in the other hits. Cool. All right, let me lower the output a bit, do some volume, some matching here. Now we're adding some harmonics here, and I'll A/B this. So this is with saturation and without. Not bad, but I think we can do better. Let's focus on the bass parameter here, and I'm just going to bump this up a bit, and then we'll hear the difference a lot more. Now let me exaggerate this. Okay, that's the sound I want in there, just not that much. So I'm going to scale this back. Cool, now let's bring in the other hits. And before, after, now typically you would process every individual tom hit separately with its own series of plugins, but in this context, seeing that we are using a drum rack, we're simply grouping them all together and applying the same plugins. All right, this is a great way of saving CPU. Cool, I like how this is sounding. Let's go ahead and group these all together. It'll be much easier to A/B the entire lot of these plugins. And just for context, let's go ahead and play these drums starting from bar 23. Drums only. See what we have so far. So this is without. And with. All right, so I'm not entirely satisfied with this tom sequence here, and partly because I want to set it in its own room, and I also want to fill out the stereo field here. And I'm going to do that with a delay. So let's go ahead and bring in a simple delay here. Stock plugin, and I am definitely going to engage the ping pong option here. So we have it strafing from left to right. Let's pull this out of sync and let's rely on milliseconds. Let's set the left to about 80 milliseconds and the right somewhere close, maybe around 90. So let's say 87 milliseconds. Let's go ahead and play what this sounds like. All right, that's a little too much. I'm going to lower the feedback here to roughly about 25, as well as the dry wet. This is 32, a little much. There we go. Just going to bump up the volume here. All right, so let's play what we had before. And this time I am going to disable all these plugins and we'll A/B this. And width. All right, so a quick and dirty little trick here, nothing too over the top when it comes to processing tom fills. Now, normally you'd probably go ahead and process every single hit individually, but this is a quick and dirty method I often like to use when I don't want to fuss around too much with tom hits, all right? So there you have it, a fairly straightforward technique. I call this the quick and dirty way of processing tom fills. If you found this useful, go ahead, give me a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you've been here since the very beginning, I really appreciate seeing you here today. With that being said, take care, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.